In a galaxy far beyond Earth, a collection of highly advanced civilizations had formed the Galactic League. The League governed interplanetary politics and military training, ensuring that only the strongest and most capable species thrived. For centuries, the League's power had been undisputed. However, a new player had arrived: humans. Their technology was basic compared to the other civilizations in the League, and their military strength was unknown. The humans had been invited to participate in the Galactic League's training program, designed to prepare recruits for combat on a galactic scale. The League's training method was highly advanced, using a series of simulators to create lifelike battle scenarios. These simulators were not like any training device the humans had ever seen. They were capable of simulating entire wars, countless alien species, dangerous environments, and overwhelming odds. To succeed, a soldier would need the highest level of skill, intelligence, and strategy. The humans were assigned to the most challenging simulator of all, one that had broken the spirits of many seasoned warriors. The instructor of the simulation, a grizzled alien veteran named Zorath, had seen it all. He had trained soldiers from across the galaxy, including some of the most fearsome warriors known to any species. Zorath had no patience for weakness, and he had been instructed to break the humans, to show the League that Earth's people were not fit for this galaxy. Zorath watched as the human recruits entered the simulator room. They were young, some barely in their 20s, wearing the basic military attire they had brought with them from Earth. They didn't look like much. Their eyes were full of uncertainty, but they stood tall, trying to appear confident. Zorath felt a flicker of amusement. Humans, he thought. They were always so eager, but it never lasted long. Most of them wouldn't make it past the first few levels of the simulation. The program had a reputation for being brutal, and he had no doubt that the humans would soon be broken. "Welcome to the Kill Count Simulator," Zorath said, his voice cold and dispassionate. "Here you will face enemies more powerful and more numerous than anything your species has encountered. This is your chance to prove yourselves. Fail, and you will not be remembered." The recruits stood in silence, absorbing his words. They knew the stakes, but they also knew that failure was not an option. Their mission was simple: survive the simulator's challenges, outlast the enemy, and prove to the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. The simulator room shifted, and the recruits were transported into their first scenario: a dense jungle on a distant hostile planet. The air was thick with humidity, and the sounds of strange alien creatures echoed through the trees. The human recruits found themselves in the middle of an ambush, surrounded by enemies they couldn't even see. The only thing they could do was react. At first, the humans struggled. They weren't used to the environment, and the alien soldiers in the simulation seemed to have an unfair advantage. Zorath watched from the control room, his fingers hovering over the console. The recruits were failing, just as he had expected. They were slow, clumsy, and disorganized. But then something unexpected happened. The humans began to adapt. They quickly learned to use the terrain to their advantage, finding cover in the thick underbrush and utilizing the weapons they had been given. Their teamwork, although uncoordinated at first, began to improve. They shared information, warned each other of dangers, and made quick decisions under pressure. They didn't panic. They kept fighting, pushing forward despite the odds. Zorath's fingers hovered over the console as he watched the humans begin to hold their ground. It was remarkable. He had never seen anyone adapt this quickly. The humans were nowhere near as skilled as the other recruits he had trained, but they were showing something the others lacked: determination. The alien soldiers in the simulation began to retreat, but the humans didn't stop. They pursued them, launching counterattacks with a ferocity that was impossible to ignore. Zorath frowned. This wasn't supposed to happen. He had designed the program to break them, not to teach them. Zorath decided to make the simulation even more challenging. He increased the number of enemy soldiers, sending in waves of heavily armored combatants. The simulator's artificial intelligence responded by adding more advanced weaponry, and the jungle itself became even more dangerous. Poisonous plants, quicksand traps, and hostile creatures filled the environment. The human recruits were faced with a level of difficulty that would have shattered lesser soldiers. But the humans did not break. One by one, they fought through the oncoming alien forces. They learned to use their surroundings even more creatively. They created makeshift weapons from the resources they found in the jungle. They used their environment to their advantage, luring enemies into traps, ambushing them, and cutting them down with the skills they had developed. As Zorath watched from the control room, his frustration grew. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Every time he increased the difficulty, they met it head-on. He had underestimated them. This wasn't just a test of endurance, it was a test of their spirit. And the humans had an unbreakable spirit. The instructor leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. He had seen many species try and fail, but this was different. The humans were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The simulation continued. The human recruits began to see a new path forward. They were no longer fighting defensively. They were becoming the hunters, pushing the enemy back and claiming victory after victory. They were rewriting the rules of the simulation, and Zorath had no idea how to stop them. He had thought the humans would break. Instead, they were breaking the simulator itself. This part sets the stage for the human recruits' surprising resilience, showcasing their adaptability and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. It builds tension as Zorath, the alien instructor, begins to realize that these humans may be more capable than he ever imagined. The air inside the simulation was thick with the scent of alien flora. Massive trees towered overhead, their leaves whispering with the soft breeze that filtered through the dense jungle. The humans had been thrown into a hostile world, one designed to break them, yet they were adapting in ways Zorath could not have predicted. The first few hours of training had been chaotic. The recruits fumbled, stumbling through the alien terrain, unsure of the environment and their weapons. But something began to change. They started talking to each other, sharing what they had learned, what worked and what didn't. They used the terrain to their advantage, hiding behind boulders, using trees as cover, and creating traps from vines and rocks. The teamwork was rough, but the foundation was there. They were learning fast, and Zorath could feel the shift. His hands hovered over the console. He watched the humans in action, seeing how they adapted to each new challenge. He threw at them. His fingers twitched and he increased the difficulty once again. A new enemy appeared. Heavy armored alien soldiers, advanced in both skill and technology. They were far stronger than the human recruits, but Zorath didn't believe the humans would last long. "Let's see how they handle this," Zorath muttered to himself. He hit a button and a new wave of enemies appeared on the horizon. These soldiers were well armored, their weapons much stronger than what the humans had. The recruits barely had time to react before the enemies descended upon them. Zorath watched with a small smirk, confident the humans would falter under the pressure. But instead of retreating, the human recruits sprang into action. One of them, a young man named Marcus, grabbed a fallen enemy weapon and fired it with surprising accuracy, knocking down the first soldier in a single shot. The others followed suit, using their environment to hide to outmaneuver their attackers. Their ingenuity was astounding. They were not just fighting, they were thinking their way through every challenge. Zorath's smirk faded as he continued to watch. The humans were no longer on the defensive. They were actively seeking out the enemy, hunting them down one by one. Every time Zorath increased the difficulty, they adapted. They fought smarter, not harder, using their limited resources to their advantage. Soon the recruits were working like a well-oiled machine. They coordinated their movements, covering each other and planning attacks. Zorath watched as one recruit, a woman named Alyssa, created a decoy by setting a small fire in a nearby clearing. When the enemy soldiers came rushing in, she and her team ambushed them from the shadows. It was a tactic Zorath had never seen before, not even from the most seasoned warriors in the galaxy. He increased the difficulty again. The jungle became a war zone, with large predatory alien creatures added to the mix. These creatures were deadly, with sharp claws and powerful jaws capable of tearing through solid armor. They were designed to overwhelm the humans, But instead, the recruits made use of their environment once more. They lured the creatures into traps, forcing them to fight amongst themselves, using fire and explosives to drive the monsters away. Zorath's frustration began to mount. No matter what he threw at them, the humans kept finding ways to survive. They were relentless. They didn't just endure, they were thriving in this brutal simulation. The instructor couldn't deny it anymore. These humans were something different. He decided to test them further. He accessed the control panel and set up an ambush, a full-scale attack from multiple directions. Thousands of alien soldiers would descend on the humans with no room to escape. The human recruits would have to fight for their lives. If they were to survive, it would take every ounce of strength and strategy they had. As the simulation unfolded, Zorath felt a surge of anticipation. The humans would face certain destruction now. They had nowhere to hide, no way to escape. It would be a bloodbath. But again, the humans surprised him. Instead of panicking, they immediately started forming defensive positions. They worked together, communicating efficiently, coordinating every movement. Alyssa, Marcus, and the others positioned themselves at key points in the jungle, creating bottlenecks where the enemy soldiers could be funneled into traps. They used the terrain, the trees, and the rocks to their advantage, making it impossible for the enemies to advance without facing heavy losses. When the alien soldiers finally arrived, they were met with a firestorm. The humans, though outnumbered and outgunned, fought back with a fierce determination. They weren't just reacting, they were controlling the battlefield. Alyssa led the charge from the front, her gun blazing as she took down enemy after enemy. Marcus followed close behind, his eyes scanning for threats. They worked in perfect harmony, their trust in each other evident in every move they made. Each time an alien soldier fell, the humans took another step forward, pushing the invaders back inch by inch. As the battle raged on, Zorath found himself increasingly impressed. He had thought the humans would crumble under the pressure, but instead, they were breaking the simulation itself. He had never seen anything like it. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. The alien soldiers, though better equipped, were being overwhelmed. Their advanced technology seemed useless against the sheer willpower and creativity of the humans. They weren't just fighting, they were outsmarting the enemy at every turn. And when Zorath sent in reinforcements, the humans were ready, setting traps and using guerrilla tactics to cut them down. Hours passed, but the battle showed no signs of slowing down. Zorath's initial confidence had turned into genuine awe. He had underestimated these humans, and now he was beginning to understand why the galaxy feared them. The humans' resilience wasn't just in their ability to fight, it was in their ability to adapt and innovate. They could think their way through any challenge, using whatever resources they had available. They were not just soldiers, they were survivors, and that made them dangerous. As the simulation finally came to a close, Zorath leaned back in his chair, stunned. The human recruits had not only survived, they had broken the simulator. The system was not built to handle their tactics, their strategies, or their determination. And yet, the humans had found a way to win. Zorath couldn't help but smile. The day humanity had entered the simulator, the League had underestimated them. But now the galaxy would have to reckon with the unexpected might of the human race. The simulator room was filled with the hum of machinery and the steady beat of the human recruits' hearts. Zorath watched them from the control room, his eyes narrowed in disbelief. The humans had defied every expectation, surviving longer than any of the alien soldiers ever had, outsmarting each scenario with a relentless drive that no one had anticipated. What should have been their breaking point had only seemed to push them further into victory. The humans were becoming stronger, more unified, and better at adapting with each simulation. Their progress in the training program was becoming the stuff of legends, and Zorath could feel the growing tension in the air. He knew the other instructors were watching. The galaxy's best warriors, including the most advanced and ruthless species, had failed where these humans were succeeding. Zorath's eyes drifted to the console. He had been using every trick at his disposal, More complex enemies, hostile environments, and overwhelming odds. But no matter how much he cranked up the difficulty, the humans kept pushing forward, overcoming everything in their path. He knew it was time to take it up a notch, but in the back of his mind he felt a nagging doubt. Could they really break the simulator itself? He slapped a button on the console. Let's see if they can handle a real challenge, he muttered, setting up a new scenario. A series of enemy combatants far superior to anything the humans had faced before were released into the simulator. This was going to be the real test. If they could beat this, they were worthy of every ounce of respect the galaxy could offer. The environment changed instantly. The dense jungle vanished, replaced by a vast open battlefield. The sky darkened as a powerful storm rolled in. The battlefield was littered with wreckage and craters, making it the perfect arena for a showdown. The human recruits looked around. Their faces tense, but there was no panic. They had learned to expect the unexpected. Zorath watched as the simulation came to life. In front of the humans stood a new type of enemy, an elite force of robotic soldiers, advanced enough to bypass human technology. These machines had been programmed to be the ultimate challenge. They were faster, smarter, and equipped with weapons that could tear through anything in their path. Let's see if they can survive this, Zorath whispered to himself as the machines moved in. At first, the humans were startled by the sheer speed and firepower of the robots. The new enemy was unlike anything they had encountered before. The bots moved in unison, as if part of a single mind coordinating their attacks with cold precision. But it was precisely this precision that the humans exploited. Alyssa, one of the human recruits, immediately saw the flaw in their strategy. She noticed how the machines responded to movement, locking in on their targets with uncanny speed. She quickly relayed the information to her squad, and within moments, the human team adjusted. They started using decoys, moving fast, staying low, and drawing the bots into traps. Zorath was beginning to feel his frustration grow again. These robots were meant to be the ultimate challenge, yet the humans were handling them like veterans. Alyssa had drawn the bots to a narrow canyon, where the machine's coordination failed them. The humans, though outnumbered, began to pick them off one by one. What are they doing? Zorath muttered. This shouldn't be possible. The humans had figured out the bots' pattern and they were exploiting it. Every time a robot fired, the humans were already moving, darting into cover or launching counterattacks. The precision and coordination they displayed were growing with each wave. What had begun as a desperate fight for survival had turned into a game of chess. Zorath saw a new twist unfolding. The humans were beginning to understand the limits of the simulation. As the robots were eliminated, one of the recruits, Marcus, found a strange energy source in the battlefield debris. Instead of using it as a weapon, Marcus decided to hack into the simulation itself. He was not a tech expert, he was a soldier, but his instincts told him that there was more to this than just surviving. If they could outsmart the system itself, they could turn the tables completely. He had learned from earlier battles how the simulation had limits, certain rules that didn't apply to reality. It was here in the wreckage that Marcus began connecting cables and using his environment to his advantage. He wasn't sure what he was doing, but he knew it had to be important. Zorath will never see this coming, Marcus whispered to himself as he worked. He had one goal: to break the boundaries of the simulator. The moment Marcus completed the hack, the battlefield changed again. The robots froze, their programming stalling. The entire simulation shook, and Zorath felt his heart race in his chest. What had the humans done? The battlefield around them began to glitch, small errors in the programming flashing across Zorath's screen. The bots were supposed to be the perfect soldiers, designed to push the humans beyond their limits, but Marcus had unlocked something deeper. The rules of the simulation, the very core of the challenge, had begun to unravel. The humans weren't just surviving, they were rewriting the rules. The robots began malfunctioning, their movements jerky and disjointed. What had once been a terrifyingly perfect force was now a chaotic mess, easy for the humans to take down. Zorath's jaw clenched as he watched the simulation break down. The humans had done it. They had outsmarted the system. The thought that They had defeated the most advanced technology in the galaxy was almost unfathomable. These humans weren't just survivors, they were disruptors. They had not only overcome the simulation, they had broken it. The recruits, unaware of the instructor's growing shock, continued their assault, moving with the ease of experienced warriors. They had learned how to defeat the system, and now, they were making the most of it. In the control room, Zorath scrambled to regain control, but every attempt to correct the glitches failed. The simulation was spiraling beyond his control. His fingers danced across the console, but the humans had already won. They had defeated the unbeatable challenge, and in doing so, had broken the simulator. He stood there, stunned, his mind racing. These humans had done the impossible. They had not only survived the impossible odds, but had also turned the very system designed to crush them into their own weapon, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The galaxy would hear of this, and the League's view of humanity would never be the same again. The humans had just proven that no matter the odds, they could find a way to win. As the last of the malfunctioning bots fell, the simulation shut down completely. The room was silent. The humans stood in place, breathing heavily but triumphant. They had done what no one had thought possible. They had broken the simulators. Zorath, standing in the control room, could only stare at the screen. He had underestimated them. He had thought the humans would break, but instead, they had broken the very system that was designed to defeat them. And now, the galaxy would have to reckon with humanity's true strength. The simulation had ended, but the humans had not been released from their virtual prison. The room buzzed with the sound of machinery as the recruits stood in stunned silence. Their victory was not just a win in a game, it was a revelation. Humanity had done the impossible, breaking the very system that had been designed to crush them. Zorath, still reeling from what had just happened, stared at the control panel in disbelief. These humans, who had been underestimated from the very beginning, had now proven their worth. But Zorath couldn't allow himself to feel admiration just yet. He had a duty to finish what he started. The humans had broken the simulator once. He would give them one last test, a final impossible scenario that would either break them or confirm that they were the true masters of this challenge. He keyed in a new set of commands, designing the most dangerous scenario the simulator had ever seen. The environment shifted once more. The battlefield transformed into a vast, burning wasteland, with molten rivers running through jagged rock formations. The sky above was filled with dark clouds, and the air was heavy with the scent of sulfur. In the distance, enormous war machines rumbled, their engines roaring as they prepared for battle. The human recruits stood at the edge of the simulation, looking out over the new environment. This time, it was no jungle, no quick escape, no terrain to manipulate. They were surrounded by enemy war machines, giant mechanical titans with weapons capable of wiping out entire cities. These were no mere soldiers. They were creations of war designed to defeat entire armies. The humans had only their wits and teamwork to survive this time. Marcus, the team leader, looked around at his squad. His brow furrowed, but there was no fear in his eyes. He had learned not to fear the simulation. Instead, he had learned to embrace the challenge. His team had broken the rules, and now they would write new ones. "We've been through worse," Marcus said, his voice steady. "We know what we're up against. Let's stick together and get through this." The team nodded, each of them taking a moment to check their weapons and equipment. Alyssa, always the strategist, was already forming a plan. She knew the enemy's strength, but she also knew the one thing the enemy didn't have: the humans' ability to adapt. She quickly scanned the terrain, noting the weaknesses in the war machine's design. These machines might be powerful, but they were still machines, with predictable behavior and flaws that could be exploited. As the massive war machines began to advance, Zorath's fingers hovered over the console. He watched closely as the humans made their first move. This time they would not have the luxury of traps and clever tactics. They would have to fight head-on, relying on every ounce of their skill and creativity. "Let's see how they handle this," Zorath muttered to himself as he released the war machines into the simulation. The human recruits wasted no time. They moved quickly, their actions coordinated, their strategy clear. They would need to outwit the machines, as they had done before. Marcus and Alyssa led the charge with the others providing support. They took cover behind the jagged rocks, using the terrain to shield themselves from the massive war machine's initial barrage of fire. The machines advanced slowly, their massive frames moving with terrifying precision. They were outfitted with energy cannons, missile launchers, and a series of defenses designed to protect them from any attack. The humans were outgunned and outmatched, but they were far from out of options. Alyssa, studying the machines, noticed a faint weak spot in one of their armor plates. It was a small opening near the engine compartment, barely noticeable but enough for a well-placed shot to cause serious damage. She turned to Marcus. "On my signal, we'll hit the left side of the nearest machine," she said. "The weak spot is just under the armor plate. We need to make sure we target it precisely." Marcus nodded. "Got it, let's move." The humans coordinated their attack using everything they had learned in the previous simulations. They didn't just rush in blindly. They moved with purpose, each member of the team playing a specific role. One recruit, Tyler, used a launcher to fire smoke grenades, blocking the line of sight of the nearest machine. Meanwhile, Marcus and Alyssa took position on opposite sides of the battlefield, preparing their weapons for the shot. Sorath watched, unable to hide the surprise on his face. These humans were not acting like typical recruits. They were working together with an efficiency he had not expected. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for victory. The first machine fired its massive energy cannon, the blast sending a shockwave across the battlefield, but the humans were ready. Marcus and Alyssa fired in unison, their shots hitting the weak spot under the armor. The machine staggered, sparks flying from its exposed engines. It let out a low, mechanical growl, stumbling backward as it tried to recover. "Got it," Alyssa shouted. "Now take down the others." The humans pressed their advantage. Marcus signaled to his team to move forward, and the others followed suit. They weren't just surviving, they were winning. Sorath could hardly believe what he was seeing. The machines were powerful, but the humans were quick and clever. They adapted to the situation and exploited the weaknesses in the enemy's designs. For the first time, he found himself impressed. The battle raged on, the humans taking down machine after machine with precision and coordination. They used every piece of the environment to their advantage, taking cover, laying traps, and working together as a team. Slowly but surely, the battlefield shifted in their favor. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the last of the war machines fell. The humans stood in the burning wasteland, their faces smeared with dirt and sweat, but their spirits unbroken. They had done it. Against all odds, they had defeated the seemingly unbeatable machines. Zorath stood in the control room, his hands trembling slightly as he watched the final moments of the battle unfold. The humans had done more than just survive. They had rewritten the rules of the simulation. They had taken his final test and shattered it. For the first time, Zorath understood the true meaning of humanity's strength. It wasn't in their physical power or advanced technology. It was in their ability to think, adapt, and fight together no matter the odds. As the simulation ended, the human recruits stood tall, breathing heavily but victorious. Zorath's voice came through the intercom, quieter than usual. "Congratulations," he said, his tone a mix of respect and astonishment. "You've broken the simulators. I underestimated you." The humans looked at each other, their faces filled with a quiet pride. They had proven themselves to the galaxy, and more importantly to themselves. They had shown that no matter how advanced or powerful their enemies were, humanity could always find a way to win. The instructor had been right about one thing. They had broken the simulators. But it wasn't just the technology that had been defeated. It was the very idea that humanity was weak. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. The room was silent. Zorath, the alien instructor who had once doubted humanity's strength, stood in front of the control panel, staring at the holographic display. His fingers hovered over the buttons, but he didn't press them. The simulation was over, and for the first time in his long career he found himself speechless. The human recruits had done what no one thought possible. They had broken the simulators. Each test, each trial had been designed to crush them, yet they had passed every challenge with determination and cleverness that stunned even Zorath. As the last of the war machines fell in the simulation, he could no longer deny it. Humanity was not just a force to be reckoned with. They had proven themselves to be a force capable of rewriting the rules of war itself. Outside the control room, the human recruits stood in the simulation chamber, their faces tired but triumphant. They had fought hard and proven that they could withstand anything the galaxy had thrown at them. Now, as the simulation ended, they waited to hear from their instructor. For them, this moment was more than just a victory in a game. It was the recognition they had worked for. Zorath walked into the room, his heavy boots echoing on the floor. He stood in front of the humans, his expression hard to read. They waited, the silence stretching between them. Then, without warning, Zorath spoke. "Congratulations," he said, his voice calm, but there was a slight edge of admiration in it. "You have succeeded where countless others have failed. You have broken the simulators." The humans looked at each other in disbelief. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. A sense of pride washed over them, but it wasn't just about winning. It was about proving to the galaxy that humans were more than capable of standing on equal footing with the most advanced civilizations. Marcus, who had led them through the final battle, stepped forward. He was still breathing heavily, sweat dripping down his face, but there was a determined spark in his eyes. "We didn't just break your simulators, instructor. We proved that we're here to stay. We'll fight for Earth, for our people, and for the future." Zorath nodded slowly. His eyes flickered to the others. Alyssa, the strategist. Tyler, the resourceful sharpshooter. Each one of them had played a role in their success. They had worked together, using everything they had learned about survival, teamwork, and adapting to challenges. And now they had done what no one had expected, taken down the most advanced training system in the galaxy. "I've seen many species come and go," Zorath said, his voice quieter now. "I've trained the best soldiers the galaxy has to offer, but never have I seen anything like this. You humans, you think differently. You don't just follow orders, you create your own path. And that makes you dangerous." The recruits exchanged glances. They had known from the start that they had something special, something the galaxy hadn't fully realized yet. But now, Zorath had confirmed it. Humanity was not just a new addition to the Galactic League. They were a game changer. As Zorath continued, the human recruits listened intently. "The galaxy will hear of this," he said. "The League's view of humanity will never be the same again. Your ability to adapt, to survive, to break the rules, has earned you respect." A sense of victory filled the room. The humans had done it. But as the instructor spoke, they knew this was only the beginning. They had proven themselves in the simulators, but the true test would be in the real world. The galaxy was vast, and there would be new challenges ahead. But they were no longer the underdogs. The humans had earned their place among the stars. The team stood taller, ready for whatever came next. This moment wasn't just about passing a test, it was about changing the course of history. Zorath paused, his expression turning more serious. "You've earned the right to fight alongside the other great species of the galaxy," he said. "But remember this victory is only the beginning. The real war has yet to come." The words echoed in the room. While the humans had earned respect today, they knew that they would face much more than just simulations in the future. But that didn't scare them. If anything, it only fueled their resolve. As they prepared to leave the training facility, the recruits shared a quiet moment of reflection. They had trained hard, fought together, and proven that humanity's spirit could not be broken. The future was uncertain, but they were ready for it. The doors of the simulation room opened and the recruits stepped out, greeted by their commanding officers. Zorath remained behind, watching them leave. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel a sense of respect for these humans. They had done more than break the simulators. They had broken through the galaxy's expectations of them. The team walked down the hallway, their heads held high. They knew that the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was a force that could not be underestimated. Their journey had only just begun, but today they had proven that anything was possible if they worked together. As they prepared to return to their ship, Alyssa looked at Marcus, her voice soft but determined. "We've made a statement today. But this is just the start. Let's show the galaxy what humans can really do." Marcus smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Agreed," he said. "And we're just getting started." The recruits walked off together, ready for whatever the galaxy had in store for them next. With the strength of their unity and the lessons they had learned, they knew they could face any challenge that lay ahead. And the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not just a new player in the league. They were a force to be reckoned with. The instructor had been right about one thing. Humanity's victory today had only just begun. The real test was waiting, and the humans were ready for it. No matter what came next, they were ready to face it head-on, knowing that together they could overcome anything.